Hello there. The UK desperately needs a political party to step up to the plate and do what neither the Tories and Labour will do, and that is to properly represent the people. This government seems totally unable to deliver for the people of this country, and when looking across at the opposition benches, they seem much the same. The whole of Westminster is chock-a-block full of wokists and net zero fanatics, as well as being experts at wasting taxpayers' money. And when one of them, like Andrew Bridgen, sticks their head above the parapet to ask some questions, they're firmly sidelined to discourage others from following suit. But then others, like Nadim Sahawi, get the full protection of "we must follow due process." And the latest is that the Prime Minister's spokesperson will neither confirm nor deny if Rishi Sunak himself has ever been fined by the taxman. These are confidential matters, we're told. If only our politicians spent as much time and imagination on getting the country working properly, instead of chasing woke and net zero unicorns or filling their own pockets, we'd be laughing. As a result, many people are calling for a general election and just accepting that we'll therefore get a Labour government, which anyone with an ounce of sense knows will be far worse than the Tories are. But the people of the UK deserve far better than this. We need someone to take us off of this path to a WEF wokedom. And the only way that will happen is if the smaller right-of-centre parties work together. But Keir Starmer will already have selected the wallpaper for the PM's flat. After all, it's a well-protected Labour/Conservative closed shop. But who to vote for instead? The front-runner is Reform UK, led by Richard Tice. But even Reform UK's former leader and now honorary president, Nigel Farage, says they can't make it on their own. And they're not aided by a rather unhelpful media. Because the job of the media is to keep the red-blue political flip-flop mechanism well-oiled and functioning. But just recently some people have been questioning Reform UK's stance on mandating medical interventions, citing a video of Richard Tice talking to the party's now deputy leader Dr David Bull, saying that caregivers must be jabbed. To which Tice answers, surely that was central to their job. And Dr Bull had fully backed the lockdowns as well. And a chunk of potential Reform UK voters are not happy about that at all. But Richard Tice has responded, saying he's the one calling for a proper, independent analysis into excess deaths, saying, "Like most of us, I am not an expert in this area, but we must have the courage to look independently at the data and then take difficult decisions if needs be." But that may not be enough for some. And then there's the issue of standing down for the Tories in 2019. Tice has promised that will never happen again. But if the voting intentions turn out to be much tighter than expected between Labour and Conservative at the next general election, can we be sure? A new political offering is desperately needed to save the country from this continual downward spiral. Could Reform UK really be that offering? So the man we welcomed into the UK, pretending to be a 14-year-old Afghan, has been sentenced to a minimum of 29 years in prison for the murder of a decent young man who wanted to serve his country in the ranks of the Royal Marines. Now, this offender had a history of dealing in illicit substances across Europe, was denied refuge in Norway, and dispatched two of his fellow countrymen with an AK in Serbia, a crime for which he was sentenced to 20 years in his absence. And what he got up to here in the UK did not bode well. But the UK will not deport him back to Afghanistan, and he will not be sent to Serbia unless they promise a retrial. But why would they? They're well rid of him. But woke UK is the one stuck with him. Well, the Met Police clean-up appears to have started. According to the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, we'll be seeing 2 or 3 of his officers a week paraded in the courts in the coming months on charges of violence, domestic abuse and dishonesty. And he went on to say that he and his force are horrified that we have hundreds in policing who shouldn't be here. And then he added that we haven't applied the same sense of ruthlessness to guarding our own integrity that we continually apply to confronting criminals. Less emphasis on woke quotas and more placed on the right person for the job might be a good start. Looking at the daily reports of actual vicious crimes coming out of London every day, you do have to wonder if Rowley was referring to his officers chasing down Twitter users and thought crimes. Because the real crimes appear to be getting out of hand. What a pickle sports is in right now. It looks like World Athletics, the sport's governing body, is going to throw the female side of the sport under the bus by allowing those who went through puberty as a male to compete for women's athletic medals. And it's well documented that they will have a huge biological advantage over their female competitors, whatever chemical actions are later taken. But if accepted into the rules in March, this will fundamentally change access to the top level of the sport for those born as women around the world. And it will then percolate down to every level of the sport and into the education system as well. How to disincentivise the participation of athletes born as female. We will be ditching the needs and feelings of 50% of the human race to cater for an extremely small minority. Sad, but true. And if World Athletics does this, the old mantra of go woke, go broke could well come back to haunt them. Because I would guess that a lot of people will not tune in, and advertising and sponsorship would dry up in time. But in the meantime, the sponsorship will, as always, be showered on those most likely to win the medals, leaving many aspiring champions born as women in the gutter. Why aren't athletes across the world, men and women, not speaking out? Because they don't want to lose out themselves, that's why. Too much at stake in their usually short, top-level sporting careers. Well, if this goes through, there will not be many born as women champions left out there. But at least the bosses at Scottish Rugby are keeping women safe. They're banning anyone not born a woman from full-contact female matches as of the 1st of February, something that will bring them into line with the rest of the UK. But if Nicola Sturgeon and the MSPs in Holyrood who voted the Gender Recognition Bill through do end up getting their own way, then how will Rugby Scotland be able to stop it? And then what happens when the TikTok Six Nations comes round? And now for Little Rishi.
Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a little boy called Rishi, and he was the luckiest boy in all the world. And even though he came from a humble background, he tended not to have working class friends. No such friends for our little Rishi. Anyway, little Rishi grew up to be a handsome little chappie, if you think Kermit the Frog on steroids is handsome, that is. And he stole the heart of a very rich woman, and he became Rishi, the rich boy from the streets, who was now richer than the King of England. Little Rishi did well working for a bank called Goldman Sachs, and his wealth and job made him oh so relatable to the people around him and the people on the streets where he came from, and everyone loved Little Rishi. Then, one day, Little Rishi made his way to the Houses of Parliament, where he gave away everyone's money so that people didn't have to go to work. And oh, how the people cheered. In fact, Rishi, one day, woke up and found himself as Prime Minister, even though the people of Britain didn't vote for him. And, as it turned out, they no longer even liked him. And now Rishi, who is richer than the king, he presides over one of the most powerful kingdoms in all the world, and he is now doing his master's work. Yes, his master's from Davos. And there is nothing that anyone can do about it. And he lived happily ever after. The end.